Andy, Grant, they've been kind to stay around for an extra 10 minutes to do an after party. And so our first after party was with Dino Watt, and we talked about TV themes, Back to the Future. And so one thing that we had talked about doing, and we just didn't get around to it, was talking about Myers-Briggs personality types that go with Marvel characters. And so if you guys are like me, I've got family of four, and especially the two boys, they love the Marvel stuff. They love the Star Wars stuff too, but we always watch these movies together. I guess at this point I've seen everything Marvel has ever put out, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers have as well. So before we maybe get into the personality types, so no, let's start with the personality types. Andy, can you tell us, well, no, let's do this. Who's your favorite Marvel character? And then we're going to try to see, because Grant doesn't know, if he likes characters that are like himself. I think that's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Grant, who are your favorite Marvel characters?
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
You want me to start?
Yeah, who are your favorite characters?
Man, I think my favorite is probably Ant-Man is my favorite. Paul Rudd, just the I think it's just from a strictly entertainment standpoint. Just he's funny. He seems like he's got the quirky little side comments. It's the brand of humor I think that resonates with me most in that one. I'm trying to think of what other ones that I really, really like.
I don't think he's an INFJ.
Like he's
what
not,
is he, Andy?
No, he's definitely an E. So I actually just had to look this one up, and I'm seeing some say he's an ENTP. So that would be interesting because ENTP, INFJ, that's the golden pairing. So yeah, I mean, that would make sense. I'm also seeing ESTP here, which I could see as correct. I could see either one of those. You'd be what?
I'd be curious. I would curious if you could tell me at one point what ones do match my personality to see if I'm actually repelled by them or that I think that they're good. Because sometimes well, in the Enneagram world, sometimes I'm triggered by a number that's similar to me because it reflects who I am, and I'm like, man, they're so annoying. Jeez, they're like showing off, So I'd be interested to see. Let me know who the character is. I'll tell you if I like him or not, or I relate to him.
So Grant's an INFJ. So who are the INFJ Marvel superheroes? Yeah.
So I'll say the most prominent one's going to be Professor X. That's the one that everyone's going to know. So
I do like Professor X. Yeah.
Professor X is good. He's very introspective. He's idealistic. He believes in people. He wants to bring out the best.
Yes.
INFJ is an interesting one. It's hard to put your finger on that. It's the most mysterious of the personality types, also the rarest. So yeah, Professor X, I'd say he'd be your prototype. They also say Silver Surfer's an INFJ. He's a little more esoteric.
That is so Grant, because if Grant could surf away from the world, he would totally do it. He'd just be out in outer space, just surfing.
Yeah. I would.
Some other ones, Invisible Woman.
Grant would go invisible if he could. Sorry.
It's like going into my deepest dreams here.
The jokes write themselves. He's either on a surfboard outside the moon or he's invisible. This is great. Okay.
I'm going to run away into the sunset. I agree.
All right, Andy, who's
the biggest one? Superman. Superman is also supposedly INFJ. I think some say he's ISFJ. But yeah, Superman, Fortress of Solitude, very idealistic, wants to protect humanity. So
man,
I could definitely see that.
Wow.
Okay, Superman. How do you beat that?
Yeah, really. You can't beat it.
I'll tell you. Here's EMTP.
Superman. Who are you at?
I think you beat him with who's the guy that broke his back? Doomsday, who is probably an INTJ. So anyway,
I'd be willing to bet. Yeah,
we're not doing DC though. We're not crossing over into DC. Screw DC. So Andy, that was very illuminating. All right, Andy, who's your favorite Marvel character? I think I know.
Yeah, it's probably not going to come as any surprise. Tony Stark, Iron Man, who is like the prototype ENTP 7-wing 8. So
you've patterned your facial hair after him, so I would hope that you're a fan of Tony Stark. Yeah. So is he the same personality type as you?
He is, ENTP. Yeah. In that same vein is going to be Deadpool, and some say Star-Lord's an ENTP. I've also heard ESTP on him, but that same kind of very improvisational, wisecracking. Kyle, you and I earlier, I sent you that scene from the Avengers where they're attacking Thor, or Thor steals Loki off the ship and Tony goes right after him. Captain America, who's your ISFJ, again, that's my wife, says, Stark, we need a plan of attack. And he says, I have a plan, attack. And that summed up my wife's and my relationship right there. So yeah, I definitely identify. Enneagram's going to be a little bit different. He's a 7 wing 8, where I'm an 8 wing 7, which is fundamentally different, even though some of the behaviors are similar. But like Grant, you were saying, our motivations for why we're behaving that way are different.
Yeah, well, he's also a Playboy billionaire, and you're a Playboy millionaire. So I mean, there's some differences, right? But
give it time.
Don't give it time. Don't count you out just yet. So, all right. So I'm an INTJ. I don't think my favorite characters are going to line up, because you'll find this out. Most INTJs are villains in movies. So, and we'll get around to probably, I'm assuming, who one of the villains from Marvel is. Probably me, but my favorite character is Star-Lord. So if he's the same personality type as you, maybe that would make sense. I also like Ant-Man. I don't know that liking a character is necessarily like that would have to be your personality type or whatever. But who are the INTJs from Marvel?
So INTJs from Marvel, some say Pepper Potts. She would be an INTJ. Cyclops, he's the leader of the X-Men, so INTJ. But the most well known is going to be Thanos.
Yeah,
and he is prototypical INTJ. I'm pretty sure he's even an Enneagram 5, probably a 5 wing 6. Grant, you could maybe enlighten me on that.
That's me.
But just this. His reasoning is not wrong. It's just completely cold and devoid of any sort of bearing for humanity. But he's not necessarily wrong. He's an empathetic villain that way. And INTJ villains do tend to be empathetic. Walter White is an INTJ villain. They make, because they make sense. You can't. There's a degree of, I hesitate to call it empathy, but at least understanding, because they're so rational, and they do get the job done.
Sherlock Holmes is an INTJ, but so is Moriarty. So there's that. Man, I really hate all three of those Marvel characters, I'm going to be honest. So I don't know what that says about me. But I guess what I should just say is, to anyone who's ever liked me or been kind to me, thank you for putting up with who I am, I suppose. So that's made me sad. So let's move on from that. I'm capable of sadness. So favorite Marvel movies, if you can just kind of peel off some. Grant, favorite Marvel movies, like what are the ones that you think of when you think of favorites?
Man, yeah. I mean, I would say, kind of going back, same thing with the character lines of the character. I get giddy about watching any of the Ant-Mans.
Really?
Guardians of the Galaxy's fun. I love Thor. Ragnarok is one of my faves. I think those ones are probably my top several. So
all right.
Yeah.
We have a lot of commonality there. I'll just be honest. Like the ones I always say, and because I'm an INTJ, I'm a very big fan of lists. And maybe that's not personality type dependent, but I love lists. And so I have at one point in the past had as many as 22 listed out from 1 to 22. And worst Marvel movie, and then we'll come back to best. Does anyone have a vote for worst? It's been newly updated because it's the Eternals.
Yes,
it's the only correct answer.
Really pushed it lately, yeah.
But yeah, prior to that,
maybe
some of the worst ones.
Yeah,
pre-Endgame. Let's see, what was the one that I said? I think Thor 2 is pretty terrible. Let's see, the Hulk, the old Hulk, awful. Not great. It's funny you said Ant-Man, because I felt like Ant-Man 2 was not good. Ant-Man and Wasp. What are some other bad ones? Andy, are there some other bad ones you're thinking of?
I mean, I hesitate to bring this up, but Iron Man 3 is always on those lists, even though I personally kind of like
Iron Man
it.
2 is worse. Honestly.
I think, I mean, it depends on who you ask. I liked them both. Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Stark fan. Let's see, like the worst ones, Eternals. Yeah, you said pre Endgame. So
it's hard to get any worse than that.
I'm not a huge Captain America fan. So the first Captain America, I wasn't that into. I kind of agree with Stark. Everything special about him came out of a bottle. But I love the interaction between Captain America and
this guy's over here
Iron
quoting
Man.
Marvel. Fantastic. Okay, so favorite Marvel, and we'll kind of wrap with that. What's your favorite Marvel movie?
Well, I think we okay, I'm gonna get complicated like every ENTP does because there's multiple ways of looking at this, but I'll say standalone Marvel movie, the best one. Um, well, let's say best overall. Best overall, I'm gonna say is Endgame. Okay, because
Okay.
it was the perfect cap to 10 years of production, and I just absolutely loved it. Standalone, though, I think Infinity War does top it. That was
Hmm.
just a nonstop thrill ride. It was delivering on everything, that paid off every sequence up to it. Number two for me is probably going to be Ragnarok. I think that's pretty universally accepted too. Thor coming out of his shell. Interesting, and I'm not going to go too far into this, but Thor kind of flipped personalities if you recognize that between
Yep.
number two and then Ragnarok. He became more himself, more like an
Hmm.
ESTP, which I thought was very interesting.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I
Well,
would
he's a
put that as
Shakespeare
number
character in the first two, and then he kind of
right.
becomes, I guess, the same sort of evolution you see with Captain America is that he sort of
Yep.
the world and the surrounding culture starts to influence how he is. I think the reality is that you start having different writers, and they sort of change the
Hmm.
character to fit them a little bit. I know Grant is a huge
And I,
fan of What We Do in the Shadows, so there is that
Hmm.
oh
crossover there. I can't think of the guy's name.
try.
Taika Waititi. Yeah.
Taika
Um,
Waititi, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Can
and
I
I
just
love
say
me some
on
TV.
that
Yes.
character development stuff? So that
Mm.
it's the Marvel characters are actually heavily tied into Enneagram, and as are a
Okay.
Mm.
lot of Grant and I have talked about this a little bit. If you guys are looking into
Mm.
shadow work, you got to check out Fight Club. Rewatch that. Learn a little bit about shadow
Mm.
work, but then look at Fight Club because
Mm.
that's what it's all about in integrating that shadow self into
Mm.
your personal self. Um,
Mhm.
but if you follow the character development of all these characters, they all are growing into their direction of growth. So have you noticed that,
Mhm.
Grant? Like, um,
Yeah.
they say that Steve and Tony were on opposite sides. So Iron Man and Captain America were on opposite sides of that, and they
Mhm.
grew into each other. Their path of growth was towards each other. So in the end, Tony made the sacrifice play, which was not what a seven would do in the beginning. He's all about distraction and
Hmm.
indulgence,
Mhm.
and he turns more to, I think, is Captain America a two or a one? I think he might be a one if I'm not mistaken. He's all
No
about
idea.
doing the right
Yeah.
thing.
I can see that.
And
Mhm.
then Captain America, he grows into what he developed into, which was letting go of the rules, letting go of that inner voice that is compelling him to be a perfectionist, compelling him to follow every rule. By the later movies, he starts swearing. He starts improvising a little bit more. I mean, it was a funny moment when he caught himself and he said, I won't repeat it, but
This is the after
he
party.
swears at himself. I can't repeat it because I don't even remember the line. He says like "holy shit" or something like that, or I don't
Yeah.
remember like. But he says something that indicates that pattern of growth and how he has
Mm.
actually defeated his old self in that moment. So, yeah,
Huh.
there's a lot of layers to Marvel movies, and it is tied to Enneagram. So I could go on for a long
Have you
time
guys
about that.
watched
There's YouTube videos. Check it out.
have you guys watched the series The Boys?
The boys.
Is that the
Yeah, for
reality
sure.
show? Oh, The
Yeah. Yeah.
Boys. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that show. Yeah.
Unbelievable like analysis of personalities in that. They have almost every archetype you can think of being represented in that. You can like Andy, I would love if you watch that sometime. You can see, especially in the Enneagram world,
Mm.
it's a beautiful representation and they play the stereotypes up. And it's they bring a lot of things up. I mean, it's not for the faint of
I
heart.
was
If
gonna
you
say,
watch that,
let me just be clear
I've
here.
stick
This is
around.
not for the children listening, but no,
No,
I think it's
no
actually
children.
a great commentary on America. It's a great commentary on
Yeah.
superhero. You know, the cult of the superhero film and the industry, and probably a little bit about Disney too.
Yep.
I'm a pretty big fan of that
Yeah,
show
it's
as well.
interesting to see with the archetypes. And then another thing
Hmm.
too, I think
Yeah.
if you're getting into like character watching, watching shows in which you have a the anti-hero is
Hmm.
very fascinating to me because that incorporates an interesting dynamic. Like again, not for kids, but somebody like a character like Dexter. You
Hmm.
find yourself rooting for the humanity of someone who's doing something actually not good, but doing it in light of a cause that he believes in. It's interesting to kind of look at, well, why do you find yourself pulling for a character that's doing that? So there's an interesting concept as this anti-hero. I think that's a fascinating thing to unpack too. Probably for another another time. But yeah.
Guys, I felt like this after party just became like sort of Comic Con. I don't know if that was on purpose or what, but
I should have worn costumes.
I'm gonna go home and lift some weights and watch some football just to just sort of balance this out. So no, this was great, guys. We'll have to catch a Marvel movie sometime. My favorite Marvel movie, I think the best overall, is Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, and so I'm very excited about the third one that's to come soon. Of course, Thor Ragnarok's great, and the big Avengers movies, those Endgame and Infinity War, those were excellent. But I got to give it to Guardians. James Gunn, may he rest in peace. Now he's with DC. I won't be watching any of his movies anymore, but he did serve Marvel well at the time that he was with them. So, guys, this was fun. Enjoy the rest of your time. We will do this. Maybe we'll do part 2 on personality types. We'll get into the love languages. We'll maybe jump into something else. I have no idea. But until that time, enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you. And thank you to everyone watching the after party. I'm going to go take a nap.